Welcome to the show. A brand new week. Hope you're feeling good, even though we've got a winter storm warning in effect for the local area here tonight. I mean, hey, it is what it is, right?
Possible snow day. That's the way I look at it.
That's good for Vince.
I'm still a child. I still look forward to snow days. So
that means we'll only get like an inch or two.
100%.
So.
I got yelled at by some secretaries today because I told them there was not going to be a snow day. And they're like, why are you being so negative?
What are you saying to me?
Oh, yeah.
Like, man, Vince.
We're not going to talk to you anymore. I said, that's fine. I said, if we have a snow day, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But if we don't, I'll just come into work as normal.
Okay. It's good to know that crotchety Vince carries over, like the day job, ticking off everyone around him, not just bringing his brand of crotchetiness to Notre Dame IB Nation Sports Talk.
I'm very equal opportunity, Sean. What you see is what you get. This is not an act. This is me. So
true.
I expect nothing.
You have morphed. You used to be the young, bright-eyed, cockeyed, rose-colored glasses, shamrocks on the glasses, Vince.
I don't know.
You're still that way to an extent, but you're it's got more edge to it now than it did 20 years ago. So
it's got more edge. Oh, you're probably right. It is what it is.
Everybody else just sit back, enjoy a cocktail or leftover turkey, smoke a cigar, whatever you do, some Rice Krispie treats. I don't know. Just do it. I feel like, Vince, we're not going to be Pollyannas today, but I don't want to spend the time nitpicking this and that, this went wrong and this went right. Look, this is a long process.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like this season started in August and it felt for all intents and purposes like it was over in early September. But as we went on 3 months later, I feel like we can dissect, whatever. At whatever point. We've got a few weeks to do that leading up to whoever Notre Dame ends up hosting in the college football playoff. But I just feel like, can we appreciate for the first time since 2020 and for the third time ever, they're in the college football playoff? I mean, it's an accomplishment, right?
100%. And you're allowed to be happy today. Like it is okay to be happy and excited about what this team could possibly do and what they've done up to this point. Like, guys, 84 days ago or whatever it was, right? Like Notre Dame was in a bad place. And we were having to walk fans off of the ledge. We were having to, but at the same time, letting them know like things aren't all right in Notre Dame land. Like things are bad. And, we criticized every aspect of the program at that point. Yeah. And
every aspect,
every aspect, coaching.
But it was deserved, right? They are
100%.
They earned it
100%. And, we said we're going to take it 1 week at a time. We are not projecting into the future as to what this team is going to be. They've got to figure it out 1 week at a time. And here they are, 10 games, 10 weeks later, Notre Dame's in the college football playoff, and they are a stone's throw away from the best possible seed they could ever have as a Notre Dame football program.
It's in play.
With a loss to Northern Illinois on your resume. Like,
in play.
Look, I'm as cockeyed optimist as the next guy when it comes to Notre Dame football, and I did not see this coming. I did. Like, everybody's, this team's going to be 500. They're going to lose 4. Like, I didn't think it was going to be that bad, but I figured they would stumble at some point along the way. I mean, if
it just felt like if you're going to lose that game, correct, you're bound to trip up at some point the rest of the way. But to Marcus Freeman's credit, they figured it out. To the team's credit, they figured it out. The whole coaching staff. It's not just the head coach. It's not just, the quarterback or whoever it happens to be. It's when you're able to overcome that kind of massive stumble early on and not only own it, but use it as fuel, like you deserve it. 84 days later, 86 days later now. But let me ask you this.
Okay.
Before we get into that, because we're going to hear we've got some of Marcus Freeman's post-game comments, the 84 days. We'll hear from Leonard on that as well, and a lot of other stuff, some interesting comments I thought that he had after the game as he fought through feedback in the press conference room. I don't know if you heard any of it, but were you ever comfortable watching the game Saturday?
Yeah, at about 3 minutes and 35 seconds.
When Xavier Watts crossed the goal line.
Well, when Christian Gray ran his back, I was feeling pretty solid. And then when Xavier Watts, it was like that was like a victory lap. You know what I mean? Like, and I was watching the game with my kid, and we're watching, and he can see the fear like in my eyes, and like I'm just like this huddled ball of just like pissed offedness as USC is driving to tie the score.
It's been forever since I've watched a game with you. I just can't even imagine what that experience is like.
I felt pretty positive throughout the game. I was trying to like, positive talk myself, but then as they were going down to score, and I'm like, this is going to come down to a field goal, and I can't handle this. Like I can't handle this coming down.
It's going to come down. It's going to come down to the guy who missed a 27-yard field goal in the first quarter.
Correct. Like that is all that I could envision is like, can they get it? Please, God, can they just go down and get a touchdown and not have this come down to a field goal? Like that's what I was thinking. And then Christian Gray intercepts the pass. It goes 99 yards, and nobody else was home, which is a good thing, because the stream of expletives that came out of my mouth at that point was diabolical. And I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm jumping, I'm doing all these things. And I look over at Dylan, and he's looking at me like, I look at him, I go, I got a little violent there, didn't I? He goes, yeah, it was kind of weird, because I wasn't really expecting that. So yeah, it was, I don't know where it came
I'm not going
from.
to tell you that's never happened to me, but I've, as I've said, aging like fine, not quite fine. Like I've learned to tamp that down a lot more as I've gotten older. Let's put it.
I probably like in the moment, like I'm like right here, like focused, especially if I'm in the basement, like not in a press box, that kind of a thing. But and half hour after the game would be over, I'd be fine. Like I would have let it go and realized life is bigger than a game and all those things. But in the moment, like I got violent, and it was it's a good thing they won. Let's just put it that way. It's a good thing that they won, and the way that they did it was a good thing as well. So
I just know that I was down there getting ready. I was at press row, and Ashton, the SID, had the computer out and got a stream, so we were watching, before the basketball game started for a little bit, and then it's like we're getting closer, and I'm like, all right, I got to tune that out. Let's get focused or whatever. But we had you and Jesse and I had the three-way text going, and I can't remember if it was after the field goal that Jeter missed or after USC scored the touchdown after the Thomas fumble. It might have been after the field goal. I just said, strap in, because it's going to be a long night. And
yeah, you did.
Vince never texted me again the rest of the weekend. So
I was, when you said that, I was mad at you.
I told Jesse today, I'm like, Vince was pissed. He had to be. He never responded. We had a good laugh out of that today before he left town. So
I was mad. I was like, damn it, Sean.
Stop with your realism.
I was like, it shouldn't be a long day. I was so mad. I was. And you knew it. That's the best part, is you knew how I felt about that particular text. You knew it.
Yep. It was stone cold silence, man. I was like, well, I just struck a nerve with Vince. I didn't necessarily mean to, but I
know you did.
I'm like, it's Notre Dame USC, man. It's in the Coliseum. That's the way these things go. So
yeah, that was I wasn't very happy about that one. Yeah.
All right. Well, real quick, if you've been following football this season, it's been a wild ride. We're hitting the home stretch, and favorites are cashing in at a historic rate. I've been using my bookie this season, and if you're wondering where to start, I've got a little cheat code for you. Risk-free Thursdays. Every Thursday, take advantage of a no-pressure bet that's there to help you build your bankroll. Just look under the Bet Boost tab in the sportsbook, and you'll see it. It's basically a free shot at some extra cash, and who doesn't love that? And look, I get why people ask, why my bookie? And so here's my take. They make it easy for us to bet smart and bet big. It's not about throwing out random parlays. It's about finding value and making plays that make sense. So if you haven't jumped in yet, use my promo code IRISH on your first deposit, and they'll double your money instantly. I'm talking extra cash into your account right away. No wait, no hassle, and you can use it on any game you want. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. So speaking of Cayman Islands, before the first game, the University of South Florida, USF women's basketball team was down there. And so I'm wrapping up.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Why do they need to go to like a tropical paradise? They are in one at all times. But anyway,
Mississippi State was there too. It's fairly warm. There's
should be all like
not much ocean next to Starkville, but
you should have to be north of the Mason-Dixon line in order to like play in those tournaments. But whatever. Continue, sir. Sorry.
That's fair. So I'm sitting there wrapping up my first broadcast Friday night, and this guy walks up to me, and I'm like, I've never seen this guy before, but he's about to say something, and he goes, I missed you on IB the other night. And
that's great.
Mention watching this. So shout out to Bryce. He is the strength coach for South Florida.
Oh, okay.
He was down there with their women's basketball team, but he is originally from up in our neck of the woods.
Nice.
So
nice.
Very cool to see him. It's just like you can travel all over the world, even to Island Paradise, and we still get IB listeners bopping in. So,
whoa, we might want to hit that one right there.
Let's do that.
Holy smokies.
974, buddy. Anytime you want to show up in this show, 11-1 season. Thank you for the super chat. He says, on to the playoffs. Thanks for the great content this season.
Hey,
You're welcome.
you.
Thanks for being here.
Wow, that is awesome. Thank you very much. Too bad they didn't go 12-0.
Yeah, no kidding.
Whew.
Would you have doubled? Would we go double or nothing on that? I mean,
man, no kidding.
I feel like, I've bet your nudity a lot on this show, and I feel like you're probably off the hook for most of it. The only one that is dangling out there, so to speak, is who the starting quarterback is for next year.
Oh yeah,
Minchie or Carr. If it's not Minchie or Carr, you're circling your house at midnight.
I feel good about that one. I feel real good about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you as well, Anthony. Appreciate Anthony. Anthony he spreads the wealth,
yes.
He doesn't drop the massive one at once, but when Anthony is always dropping them in, like you never know when he's going to throw in. He said, glad you made it back safely, Sean. Here's the first national championship since 1988. In the mix, baby. In the mix.
You got to get in before you got to be in the dance in order to be crowned king. So one step at a time, ticket punched.
I know it hasn't been officially announced yet, but it's like a lot of the things that I've read, it's like Notre Dame has seemingly locked up a playoff, like those kind of. It's like
seemingly locked off home field.
Yeah, it's like
no,
they're not slipping 8 spots. They're not slipping 10 spots. They're in the field. They're hosting.
Correct.
It's like it's going
to
happen.
Utter chaos where every underdog wins. This Saturday, they still host. Even if that happens, they still host. So, yeah, they're in. They're in. It's all good. Where the super chats are flying in today. People are
should we drop these more super chats?
Might
in
as
now,
well.
Or you want to wait a few minutes?
I think we should drop them in. They're dropping the coin. Let's drop the questions.
Well, you were watching live. I saw the highlights afterwards.
True.
Thank you first, Tyler, for the super chat. He says, what was going through your mind after the Christian Gray interception and then the Watts interception? I'll just say I think we were like on the bus leaving, and I had seen the Christian Gray highlight, and then I saw like a tweet or something about Xavier Watts, and I was like, hold it.
You were confused, probably.
Watts had one too. 100 yards after Gray had a 99. I've got to see that. And by the way, I did power through the whole game this morning.
Nice.
Shout out, got like good use of time. Got the treadmill out.
Oh, there you go.
Watch the first half in about 30 minutes. Watch the second half at about 35-ish, something like that. Just enough time at the end, to get it all. I was starting to worry that I was going to miss the 2 interceptions based on how much time was left on the recording. But I made it. So that's nice, man. Like the only thing that's not cool is like not a lot of drama, obviously, since I know what's going to happen, kind of where it's leading to and that kind of stuff. But
being able to cut
nice
out
to be able to power through all those commercials, extra points, and all that, punts and all those kind of things.
Whoa.
Does anybody really care about the punt? Come on.
Have I taught you nothing?
So what was going through your mind?
Oh, well, I told you, like going into the Christian Gray interception, I was freaking out. And then when he caught the interception, I didn't even care about him taking it all the way back. It was the fact that they had now, like him catching the ball prevented them from scoring a touchdown. I felt fantastic at that point because I felt pretty good about Notre Dame being able to run out the clock at that point. It was less than 4 minutes. It was about 3.5 minutes, something like that. But then he kept running. And I was like, this is fantastic. And I was on my feet, screaming, yelling. It was relief.
Well, that's the thing.
It was relief.
Because like you think it's almost like, like a punt return or something. Once you get past the fast guys,
right.
It's all offensive linemen to beat. And it was kind of the same because all the receivers were obviously
they're in the end zone.
Down in the end zone. And so he hits the sideline and it's, a couple of, big uglies trying to chase him down. And I think it was, wasn't it Maeva was called for like a cut block or something on that play, wasn't he?
He tried to go low, to take out a Don Schuler who was lead blocking. That's what they called the flag on. But I will say, when he crossed the goal line is when the little thing with the set of flag comes up on the screen.
And you had to be thinking, oh, this is coming back.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, really?
Right.
Like, you've got to be kidding me. And then when they said it was on the passing team, I was like, whoa. Brian said he was watching the lips of the referee to make sure he said after the interception or something along those lines. You know what I mean? Because, like, that's all that mattered. As long as they still retain possession.
Are you a good lip reader?
To a degree.
I'm horrible. It just looks like it's just not at all.
I'm okay at it. Yeah, I'm okay at it for sure. But I was just, when they said after the interception, I was like, okay, thank goodness. So yeah, it was relief. And then the Xavier Watts one was just, like I said, it was like a victory lap.
Icing on the cake. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like the victory parade, basically.
Yes. And I did notice him looking at USC sideline as he was going down
that's coming up in rapid fire. So
yeah, that was.
We'll make people. We got a lot. We're gonna have some of Marcus Freeman's comments on Christian Gray's play, some of Christian Gray's thoughts on his play, including his interception, and we'll talk about Xavier Watts as well. So we won't spoil all of it. Now we'll save some of it for rapid fire. So Super Chat's just rolling in. Thanks again, everyone. Merry playoff Christmas. Thank you very much, Mark.
Playoff football. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Here we go.
Yep. Gregory Gilbert, thank you. Vince, I still would be fine with Michigan falling into the Great Lakes. Proud of Notre Dame for taking care of business Saturday.
Hey, listen, I was a Michigan fan on Saturday, and it just felt icky to be rooting for Michigan, but it's
Schadenfreude. That's fine. Like it's back to the days of like the classic. You pick whoever's going to screw up the other one's season.
Yeah.
The most for the last 2 years. They've predominantly been, at least top 10 teams. So it's been harder, really to cheer. But you got an unranked team. You got an unranked Michigan going in and beating down Ohio State, and Just for Men walks out of there.
Just for Men. That's fantastic. It was like, that was just, it was great is what it was. It was fantastic. It was great. And I was rooting for Michigan to win that game. And they almost screwed it up, by the way. I'm sure you didn't have a chance to watch that game because you were actually working and doing.
I actually I think I saw the whole first half before we had to get on the bus and go.
Okay.
So
they screwed up so many opportunities. I mean, going forward on fourth down, not getting it on the goal line, and then throwing that pick on the goal line. Like they should have been up by 2 touchdowns. Like it should have been an absolute blowout because the Ohio State offense was god awful that entire game.
I'm just not impressed with Will Howard.
No.
And you got to remember,
been all year,
Notre Dame could have had Will Howard before Riley Leonard with the injury history. And does anybody think they made the wrong choice?
Thank goodness they did not.
He's still a Kansas State quarterback. No offense, K-State fans.
Right.
I know some of you are out there, but he's still a Kansas State quarterback to me. Like that's what he is. Riley Leonard is beyond being the Duke quarterback because, again, like his play is in a completely different place right now.
Completely agree with that.
Compared to Will Howard.
And I do wonder.
Doesn't mean he's perfect, but he's in a completely different place.
I do wonder how Ohio State fans feel about the quarterback situation in that the guy they gave up, the guy they ran out of town versus the guy that they got. How you feeling? I don't think they're feeling great.
I don't think there's that much difference between the two of them. Really.
I mean, if you put the two side by side, I would take McCord over Howard. But you're right. I don't think either one of them is a championship quarterback.
Yeah. Well,
is that all of the super chats?
I've got all the. That's the super chat. Let me see. I think there might be one.
Oh, one more.
From Jay. Thank you very much, Jay. Imagine if Jay Love had Genty's carries. Dude is an absolute freakazoid. Pumped for the playoffs. I mean, like,
I don't know that Jay Love is built to have that many carries, to be honest with you, with the way that he plays the game. And I don't know that him and his family would be very happy if he had that many carries, to be perfectly honest with you. But your point stands in that Jay Love is a extremely talented running back, and his numbers would be insane if he had that many carries and if he was running against the teams that Genty's running against. I mean, look, I'm just going to call a spade a spade. If he was running against a group of 5 schedule, his stats may even be better.
No, I mean, look what Bryson Daly and the Navy quarterback. His name is slipping my mind right now. But you know what I'm talking. Like, look at the numbers they were putting up against all the teams that they were putting it up against before they played Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Now Daly obviously still ended up with over 100 yards, but he needed 33, 35 carries to get it. You know, like it's just a big difference when you're playing, you know, when you're playing outside of the Mountain West.
Yeah,
basically, that's going to be the new Pac-12 at some point.
Well, that's a good point. I'm not taking anything away from what Ashton Genty's been able to do. He's a really, really talented running back. Really, really talented. I like the guy that wears the gold helmet. I mean, I'm happy that he's on Notre Dame's team, and I'm happy that he doesn't have to touch the ball 35 times a game. You know what I mean? That's the thing about Boise State is they're a good football team. There's no doubt about it. Are they more than him though? That's the question. If a team zeroes in who has the ability and the talent to shut him down to a degree, right?
That's right.
Contain him.
That's right.
Do they have enough to win? I don't know the answer to that because I haven't watched enough Boise State football games, right? But if Notre Dame ends up matching up with Boise State in the first round, which is a possibility, I'll be watching some more Boise State football, see what they can do.
Blake Horvath. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. It was one of those. I was seeing the screenshot, you know, from looking at him.
Yeah, right.
And obviously seeing him play, but the name was not coming to me for some reason. Thank you, Joe. Blake Horvath was his name.
We do have an Ohio State fan in the chat. I just want to acknowledge Mr. Bucknuts. Appreciate you being here, man. And hey, he says he would like Howard over McCord because he says McCord folds under pressure. Okay, cool. I mean, you watch way more Ohio State games than I do, and so I will respect that.
I mean, I definitely feel like Howard made a mistake. I'm not putting that whole game on him because that was the coach. How do I want to say this? You know, he was puckering up, right?
Yeah, he was.
It was tight. It was tight, is what I'm saying, and he was his own worst enemy against Ohio State with the game plan. You know, like thinking that you just had to run the ball, and that's how you have to beat Michigan. Well, that's what Michigan wants you to do. You've got freaking playmakers still all over the field with your wide receivers. You needed to be throwing the ball more, and that's not what they decided to do. So I'm not going to cry for him by any means, but yeah, I mean, look, Bucknuts, you've watched much more. I'm not saying Howard is a bad quarterback. I'm just like, as far as, is he a championship level quarterback? That's, you know, like, that's the differentiation that I would make. He's a nice college quarterback, but he's not a championship level quarterback based on what I've seen of him.
Yep.
And again, I'm not blaming Saturday on him.
A lot more blame goes to the coach.
Much more.
Yeah, yes. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Okay, so we know Notre Dame is in the playoff. It's a 12-team playoff field.
Yep.
There's no way they're falling out after beating USC to close out the regular season Saturday, exactly 84 days after that inconceivable loss to Northern Illinois.
To see where we were 84 days ago to, you know, where we're at now, it's a testament to the trust and the decisions that those guys in that locker room and the coaching staff and everybody that helps have made. And this is what it's all about, man. It's the journey, right? There's a journey, and you can't let the highest of highs and lowest of lows deter you from what you need to do to reach your goals. And so it's awesome. I'm excited. We're going to enjoy this thing. We'll worry about the future later. Like, I know people want to ask about the future, but let's enjoy this victory in this rivalry game versus a really good USC team, which we knew going into the game they were a good team, a really good team. And so proud of these guys, and we're going to have a happy flight back home.
I was trying to picture, I doubt it was like 86 Mets flying back from Houston and totally, like destroying that airplane. But at the same time, I was trying to imagine how much fun they must have had flying home on that 4-hour flight from Los Angeles afterwards.
Why can I not think of the quarterback's name who was with the Vikings, now he's with the Falcons? Cousins, yeah, with like the chain on and like getting crazy on the airplane. Like, that's my vision of like Riley Leonard on the airplane, just being like a goofy guy or whatever. But I'm sure. And he also said later on, I watched the press conference. He talked about the fact that they're going to celebrate on Sunday too, because they don't have anybody to prepare for. We're going to let this one soak in a little bit more. That's awesome. Like, good for him to be able to just
let the 24-hour rule go a little bit longer.
A little 48-hour rule now. You know what I mean? And you can start dissecting who you may or may not have, in the first round and things like that. But like, it's okay after a really long regular season to take a breath and just be appreciative of what you were just able to accomplish, because what they were able to accomplish was pretty stinking amazing to go 10-0 coming out of the pit that they were in after NIU.
Absolutely. I mean, think how differently everyone feels right now.
Yeah.
86 days later, it was 84 Saturday, obviously. 86 days later,
right? Almost 3
full months since Northern Illinois. I remember what the things that were swimming through my head. It's like, oh, this season is gone.
I remember thinking about my bank account.
That's exactly.
I remember thinking about just like content.
I wasn't going to quite go there.
But I'll go there.
That was what this season is gone is leading to. Was okay. Well,
I'll go there.
For that.
I'll go there because
Let's make it up in December. Let's make it up in December, baby.
Right.
I know some of you suckers who are in here tonight were not here in September, so let's party. Come on.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, man. Like, we go as they go. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is, but I will I can appreciate the fact I know where I was mentally after that NIU game and kind of projecting out to the season, knowing where I am now. And look, every single week was like, yeah, Notre Dame should win this game. But we also said that prior to week 2. So it's like, were they actually going to be able to do it? And they just got, as a team, as a coaching staff, they got better and better and better and better. And here we are.
I remember walking out, and I won't say who it was, but I remember walking out of the Northern Illinois postgame press conference, kind of like going through some of those things might have been coming out loud with some other, sounds coming out of my mouth. And one of the other guys on the beat was like, hey, you just got to root for total anarchy now. You just got to hope it's just a train wreck of a season. And
what did we get?
Yeah, look where it came. Look how it spun instead.
Look, an 11-1 team where that one is Northern Illinois, I still think gets Notre Dame into the playoff, but they're not sniffing the 5 seed. They're not sniffing the 6 seed where they are now. They're not guaranteed to host a game without a lot of the chaos that took place. Now, some of the chaos happened and it was underneath them and allowed some other chaotic things to happen, right? But like, a lot of the chaos, man, definitely benefited Notre Dame. Like, again, 11-1 Notre Dame, I think, is in the playoff regardless. They're in there somewhere. They may have to go on the road. They may have to do some different things. They're in, but they're not sitting where they're sitting right now if it wasn't for all the nonsense that took place. No doubt.
I know that you want to hear from the most positive man in the world. So I'm going to let you hear from the most positive man in the world right now.
Yeah, 84 days ago. It was 84 days when we lost against NIU. And, I kind of told myself, like, we can win, we can lose, but I'll never walk out the field with any regret anymore. And I kind of left I feel like regret only comes from missed opportunities, not failed opportunities. And I feel like I missed opportunities earlier in the season that led me with regret. Oh, I didn't throw this ball, or I wasn't this confident, or I checked out of this play because I didn't like it as much. Now, whether we win, lose this game or not, like, I leave with no regrets. I'm letting the ball fly around a little bit. 84 days, it's crazy.
84 days. They were obviously that was obviously a big pregame thing, that 84 days. But
Riley Leonard, I got a couple thoughts on Riley Leonard. Number one, I feel like when you hear him talk, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Sesame Street because he's just like super positive, and then he's like a walking bag of cliches. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then
I've got one coming for you here.
He's got quotes. He's got, all these different things. It's like, oh, I love you, Riley. Like, and he just always has a smile on his face, no matter what happens. Like,
he does.
Good for him.
I think, I wonder how much of it just comes from the fact that, like, 5 years ago, this was a kid who was just trying to get a basketball scholarship someplace.
Yeah.
But he was such a good athlete, and he had the connection to Cutcliffe at Duke, and that led to an opportunity at Duke. And because he's just such a damn good athlete and a smart athlete, smart guy as well, to get into both Duke and to Notre Dame, and just everything that he's done. No, again, it has not looked absolutely perfect for Riley Leonard this season, but the guy he's just like we were talking about Christian Gray earlier, and we'll talk about him later. I mean, he's kind of like a great cornerback, as opposed to quarterback, just trying to enunciate a little bit there, but just putting it behind you. And, like you said, just let it rip, not having any regrets. Sometimes there's going to be a mistake or two. The mistakes have been a lot fewer and far between for the most part. Really, the only glaring mistake that I think since then, again, he threw an interception the other day, but like the interception on the deep ball against Georgia Tech is really the most glaring mistake that I think that he has made since that Northern Illinois game. But you can see it, the confidence that he carries himself with, and the positivity. And I just think that between that and the way he plays and the toughness, because you stand next to this guy, he's tall, but he's also, he's not, he's not built like Manti Te'o. Let's put it that way. He's not built like Jalen Smith. He is not a big, thick man. He is built more like a shooting guard, like a basketball player.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the toughness that guy has with some of the hits that he takes, and he just keeps getting up and he just keeps going, man. That's gotta, that's noticed by everyone on both sides of the football.
He's just he's like Opie with a football, but like tough. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's a pretty old reference for a lot of people, an Andy Griffith Show reference, but he's just kind of a happy-go-lucky guy from Alabama, just here to play the football, we're just going to run. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to see my mama after the game. Like, he's just, and then you see him actually play the game of football, and not only is he deceivingly fast, but he's also just, like you said, tough as nails. He's tough as nails. Like, he searches out contact from guys. He searches it out. He will lower his shoulder every time.
And look, I haven't mentioned this once all season, but think of all the other guys who have unfortunately seen their season ends. And what was our biggest concern with Leonard going into this, because of the repeated foot surgery and the ankle and everything else, and people calling this guy injury prone. And, again, I'm sure going back to, was that the Louisville game? Yeah, the Louisville game, when the dude came down on top of him and knocked the wind out of him and all that.
Yeah, that was
stuff.
Scary.
And, and even before that, with the reports of the shoulder and those things, I'm sure there's some things that have probably gone on with this guy that we don't even know about, but you wouldn't know it by watching him on Saturday.
Agreed.
Because you cannot question his heart. That's for sure.
No. We obviously, we're waxing poetic about, the Army quarterback and how he's tough as nails and all those different things. every single thing we said about that kid, you can say about Riley Leonard. And I think it would be appropriate both on and off the field.
And that kid's thicker than Riley Leonard too.
Yeah.
Like his body is built to take it more than Riley Leonard's. So
right, exactly. So hey,
the guy is like 4 inches shorter than him and still has like 10 or 15 pounds on him at this point.
It's amazing.
So yeah, and so I'm looking because off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember what the number is right now. He has 30 total touchdowns now this season.
Pretty solid.
Rushing and passing combined. Not bad.
Pretty solid. And a few more games to get to pad those numbers too.
I got another Riley Leonard here for you.
Yeah, you said it best. It's hard to win college football games. My freshman year, I went 3-9. So it's crazy, long ways away from that. But every single week, these guys prepare their tails off. And I feel like we practice exactly how we play. When we have good weeks of practice, when we're throwing certain balls or hitting certain runs, it shows up. It's literally like deja vu when it gets to game time. So this team, we'll be very ready and very healed up for this playoff game coming up.
I mean, you were talking about cliche answers, and I mean, he even slipped in a winning is hard. There,
winning is hard.
Like right off the top, winning is hard. But
winning is hard. Winning games is hard. You only get 12 opportunities.
Looking at all those lumps he took at Duke.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, and he can at least appreciate the fact that they're 11-1 after going 3-9. I mean, there's obviously appreciation there for putting in the work and being who you are. And he's a true senior, so that freshman year wasn't that long ago. You know what I mean? And they tasted some success at Duke until Notre Dame rolled in and he got hurt and, that kind of a thing. And they obviously, beat Clemson and they did a lot of good things at Duke. This is just a different level, going to Notre Dame and being the quarterback at Notre Dame is just a different level. And he, as Marcus Freeman put it, highest of highs after week 1, lowest of lows after week 2. And he figured out, Riley Leonard figured out how to navigate all of that. I think that was probably a lot for him to deal with right off the bat. And he figured out how to navigate that for the better.
So Marcus Freeman talked after a game about when he knew this could be a special team.
I've known from the start of training camp that we had a chance to have a special program. But it's a process. You got to build it. And we had to go through the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in the first 2 weeks of the season. But they continued to just prepare, and they chose to put the work in and not feel bad about themselves, and they believed in themselves too. And so I've known this team has been a really good team. I told you guys earlier that it was the most talented roster I've had since I've been here. But we had to become a good team, right? The talent is one thing. We've developed to a good team, and it's because of our hard work.
And I think that, you wonder sort of how much of that was still coming together against Northern Illinois, because we talk mostly about, Leonard and Denbrock weren't on the same page. But, I mean, think about different offensive line, early on, all the transfers who were going to be significant contributors, that whole thing. There was obviously a ton of talent, but I think it's kind of easy to overlook that, I think. Sometimes, just like, beyond just being a talented team, about what you are as actually a team.
Yeah, no, and the depth is legit, obviously, because they've had to endure all these injuries. I mean, think if this team was healthy, what they might be able to be doing right now. I mean, it is pretty amazing where they're at, and a lot of credit, because a lot of blame went to Marcus Freeman, but a lot of credit has to go to him now as well. It can't be both. It can't be one or the other.
You can't just pile on.
Yeah. Exactly. And we all piled on. Like I'm guilty. I piled on,
but look, it was, like I said, it was earned, it wasn't like anyone was going out of their way wanting to take shots. Like, you lost to Northern Illinois at home, your home opener. Like, that's, as a head coach, that's on you. And it calls everything into question that came before that. And at least in my mind, it still left a pretty good layer, going into like some of these games. My question to you is going to be, when did you feel like this team had truly turned a corner? For me, it's really just been week to week, the last few weeks, was there going to be another letdown against these teams who are all, steps down, but like if you looked at them on paper, most of them still should have been better than Northern Illinois, right?
Yeah, they were all better than Northern Illinois. I mean, for the most part, I mean, Miami, I think, beat Northern Illinois. I believe off the top of my head, Miami's playing in the conference.
I know Miami's,
so
they were in first place,
against Ohio, and Northern Illinois isn't. So, I mean, there you go. So, I think every team the Notre Dame played from there on out was better than Northern Illinois, and maybe not Purdue. Sorry, Boiler fans, if there's any in here. But that's a rough season for them. But I honestly, I don't know that there was ever a time where I was like, they got it. Like now I'm a believer. Like it was literally, I wasn't joking around in those shows after the NIU game where I was like, it's literally week to week for me. I'm taking it 1 week at a time. I'm trying not to look too far in advance. I finally was able to breathe after the game was over on Saturday, to be perfectly honest with you, because at any point was this Notre Dame team that we saw in week 2 going to, rear its ugly head. Mm-hmm. It was always there, or was there going to be a catastrophic injury that produced that outcome? You know what I mean? So I never really felt comfortable until they had the win at USC in the bag. I really didn't. So it was week to week for me. I'm not going to lie. Every week I thought Notre Dame could win and should win, but I never thought this team's going to be 11-1. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like,
Jesse, hands at 10-2. First of all, like heading east right now with a winter storm warning bearing down on the area. Don't look at the dogs. Keep your eyes on the road. But he says Navy game. Navy game was where it turned for him. To me, that was a starting point. Like, what were you going to be? And that's Gary says Louisville. I wasn't completely sold against Louisville because, I kind of bought for a minute, but then they turned around the next week and laid an egg and obviously lost a couple games after that. So it's like, it was still a solid win, but it was just a solid win. Like it didn't change my mind at all. I will say, like the fact that basically the way Notre Dame's defense just shrugged off Navy and Army's offenses, that definitely raised my feel, but it was still, look, we talk about the difference between having a good collection of talent and actually being a good team. Like Florida State still has some good talent. That's obviously not a really well-coached team. Don't play like a team. USC, as we saw, they have some talent.
Sure.
And, it's like specific to how are you going to have success against Notre Dame? Like, they don't play like a team. They're not. They play better defensively, but I think that talent is just good enough. That's why USC has played in so many close games, and obviously won a few of them. But I think that's also why they're a 500 team at the end of the day. But I don't know about you, Vince, but like that Maleva kid reminds me of someone who's playing in Chicago right now.
Had to bring him up, didn't you?
I knew that'd make you happy.
Well, and Notre Dame did their best to make him look good too. I mean, they didn't get any pressure on him at all, and they just weren't able to do much in this game against him. And he played really well. His best game he's ever played. There's no doubt about that. I mentioned this on the show last night that the coach to player little speaker action going on that couldn't hurt. Having Lincoln Riley in your ear. Because he did. No, that's
exactly it. Because it's not just him. Lincoln Riley's a really good offensive coach.
100%.
And again, like, so like just to go back to what I was saying, like saying that they're maybe not the best coach, like offensively, like Lincoln Riley is a great offensive mind. And that matchup, I think he had something to prove the way Al Golden just abused him and Caleb Williams at Notre Dame Stadium last year. Like Lincoln Riley had a very specific game plan, and he adjusted it as he went along as well. It definitely helps Maleva, but I also think that that's probably a guy who we're going to be talking about in the first round this time next year. So
is he? I thought he was a freshman. Okay.
Now he played at UNLV last year.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Brian made a good point. I didn't really think of it this way. Woody Marks, they were trying to ride Woody Marks. Like that was clearly the game plan going in. And, he had 6 carries for like 30 yards or something like that. And he had a couple of decent carries and things like that. But I think the game plan was we're going to ride our best player. And then when he got hurt, it almost forced them to throw the ball around. And I think that's the best thing that could have happened for USC, to be honest with you, because if that was their game plan, I think Notre Dame shuts them down. Like I don't see that being an offense that is sustainable against this defense. But then they started throwing the ball around and they started doing some different things. And Mayava was locked in on some receivers, but there was nothing Notre Dame could do about it. You know, they weren't getting any pressure on him. He was able to sit back there and throw to whoever he wanted. But I think that might have actually helped USC when he went down, because it made them kind of change the game plan around a little bit.
Thank you, by the way, Mayava. Like, no matter how many times I wrote it down and practiced,
I think that's how it is. I'm guessing.
I still feel like Gary Danielson calling Billy Schrouth, Billy Schruth, and whatever else he was calling him.
That was so bad.
During the game. Told you I watched the game.
So bad. Like I kind of liken those two to just like, it's just two older guys just kind of taking in a game. They didn't really do a whole lot of research. They just kind of showed up to call it. It's a bucket list. They said that a few different times. Oh, it's always been my bucket list to be at a Notre Dame USC game. And they just kind of showed up and they're like, here, have a mic. And they just kind of did it.
It's like us in late October griping at each other. Two old men up in the balcony is what it is. Hey, there happened to be a game out in front of us. All right. That's
whatever.
A bonus. That's a bonus. Let's just talk about this game that happens to be in front of us. We'll do it on national TV.
It was pretty funny.
Names don't matter.
Admit. And it's not like they were, rooting, like visibly rooting for somebody, either team. Like they were right down the middle as far as that's concerned. They just weren't that great.
But it was generally just the details.
Yeah.
Like the Purdue game. It's like, man, you guys have been doing this for a long time. I feel like you could be a little more prepared than this.
Which is why, because they do it for such a long time, it's like nobody can tell them that they're not doing a great job. You know what I mean? It's just, they're just kind of mailing it in. They're just kind of there, whatever.
But I mean, it's those two guys are they get the, they're the number one Big Ten package game every week on CBS. As far as CBS is concerned, whatever their top game is.
It's crazy.
Mayava. Keep saying it. I know.
You don't have to worry about it again until next year. They're done. We're not covering.
Okay, so Brent asked me this, and I was kind of saving it, but Salty, of course, had to call me out because it deals with Jaden Greathouse. When's he going to break out? I mean, we're 12 games in at this point, so
next year.
Honestly, thought it was going to be by now myself.
Yeah, I think if you took a poll of people that watched, fall practice, and he's the best receiver that they have. It just from a production standpoint hasn't turned out that way. Now, I still think he's really talented. He's still on the field all the time too, so he's still a weapon that hasn't been utilized at this point. I think the utilization of the tight ends in this game gives me great excitement for what this offense could be in the playoff, because at one point or another, it's been Faison, it's been Greathouse, it's been, Bo Collins early in the season. It's been Mitchell, it's been Mitchell Evans, it's been, they've kind of like, there's lots of weapons on this team. And if you're a defensive coordinator trying to prepare yourself for this offense, you can't really circle a guy and be like, we got to shut this guy down and let Julian Love or Jeremiah Love maybe. But like, other than that, who are you circling? Because every one of those guys could hurt you if possible. And, I think
that's the thing too. Love had 16 total touches in the game the other day. And I think 18. Let me double check this here real quick. 17. Yeah. 17 is his season high. So, I mean, he was right out,
and he went out at the beginning of the third quarter. Now,
right.
I do think there was also a concerted effort to like, look, it's Love and Price. Like, those are our guys. We're not really going to bring anybody else in. Because even after Love went down, it was the Price show. Like, I think Williams was in for like one or two plays, but it was the Price show at that point. So I think it was going to be back and forth with just those two, because this was a big game. We're not really going to go, down the depth chart from a running back standpoint. But again, that just highlights my point that there's all kinds of guys on this offense that can hurt you. You know what I mean? And they highlighted both tight ends in this last game. Hey, look, they can hurt you too, So Riley Leonard does a good job of throwing to whoever's open. I mean, I can't remember a game where, at least recently, where there's been less than 8 different receivers targeted. And
he spreads it around.
Catches,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think everyone, and look, Bo Collins has continued to be a fairly frequent target. And I'm not saying that catch the other day was easy, but like, he's just been very inconsistent for the last month or so.
And Bo Collins was Riley Leonard's kind of go-to guy there at the beginning of the season. I think that's kind of shifted to either Mitchell Evans and or Jordan Faison at this point, as far as like a go-to guy that you can kind of circle, that kind of a deal. But again, he's going to spread it out. He's going to throw it to whoever's open. He's going to throw it to Bo Collins if he's open. Bo Collins just has to catch the stinking ball. I mean, that's the thing.
Tom Brady won a lot of games like that, especially early in his career.
Before
he got Randy Moss, before he got Gronk, and that whole, he was spreading the ball out all over the place. So, like you can win a lot of games that way, keeping defenses honest. Just like the stats, I'm not going to get like too consumed with like who's getting the yards or whatever else, especially now. Like literally the only thing that and really, I mean, for the last 10 weeks, you can say it as well, but now it's even going to be, highlighted even more so.
Yeah.
All that matters is winning.
Correct.
Who gets yards, who does what, winning is all that matters now at this point. So
agreed.
So Brent was asking about the love status.
Okay.
And there's just no official word.
And we won't
right
get
now.
one. We're not gonna be able to talk to the coaches for a few weeks, to be honest with you.
Like there are things that we've heard, and I know there's a report or two out there. I'll just say there's things that we've heard, but we're just not going to go there until Marcus Freeman addresses it publicly. Unless Brian decides he's going to make a complete 180 from what his stance on that kind of stuff.
I think he put something on the board, but I mean nothing's definitive. It's all sourced work. It's all sourced information. And look, you just go off of what you saw at the end of the game. Okay, there's plenty of pictures of him walking around with a certain part of his lower leg taped. Right, his calf was taped, I believe. And I'm just going off of the pictures. And he was taking pictures with people, and he was hopping around, and he was on the bike they showed him in the broadcast. He's on the bike, he's testing it out, he's running. Like, I think most logical people can look at that and be like, you know what, with 3 weeks rest, he'll probably be okay. Like that would be my assumption.
You've just got to push the limits. You've just got to push the limits.
I don't know what the source stuff said. All I'm saying is what I watched live. I just think it was like, you know what? It's kind of uncomfortable to get back in this game. We're going to let Price do his thing for a while. I'll be fine. I'm going to let him go. Like, that's what it felt like to me in the moment. And until I hear differently, that's what I'm going with.
I agree. Be curious to see like when we do get to, because like the clock is basically we're 18 days away from, if it's a Friday game, 19 days away if it's a Saturday game. So we're just a little bit less than 3 weeks, obviously a couple weeks from Friday or Saturday. So
I think like we're probably not going to get to talk to them on Wednesday because they don't really do press conferences for signing day anymore. And I think the next time we're going to get to talk to them is probably the Monday of game week, unless they have a special press conference to talk about making it into the playoff, which I suppose is possible. But
Brent asked why Freeman wouldn't provide an immediate.
Why
update.
would he?
Because there's no press conference today.
Why would
that's when they address injuries. Yeah, like their policy is they put out their injury report. They do it in the game notes that they put out on Monday of game week, and then Marcus Freeman has his press conference and he addresses injuries at that point. So
nobody needs to know how anybody is doing on the team.
Right.
Nobody.
And don't forget, Selection Sunday is next week. So
right.
Regardless of what it is, like, why would you come out with any of that kind of information before?
I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't.
Yeah. I would imagine probably, like next weekend, whether it's Sunday night or, like after the, the seedings and the pairings and all that stuff, like sometime within the next week, we'll probably get a crack at talking to Marcus Freeman again.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that he might do a press conference based on who they're going to play. You know what I mean? Just a kind of a reaction press conference, maybe Sunday afternoon, maybe Monday morning, kind of a deal. Maybe.
Well, don't forget, like even with bowl games, like after the bowl games have been announced, we've had Zoom conferences.
Yeah, the access. Yeah, that's
via the bowls.
Yeah, that'll probably happen, I would imagine. And then the week of will be more of a normal game week because it's going to be a home game. It's going to be normal. Things change obviously when they have to go on a road to a bowl game because you get there days early and the whole thing. But you cross that bridge when you come to it.
Jesse got his ticket the other night. Him and his bros got their ticks.
Really?
I'm curious. Does anyone else have your tickets yet?
I'm curious as to who his hookup is because you got to know a season ticket holder to get a ticket this early.
They're selling the tickets on StubHub.
Okay.
So
because they have season ticket holders have until December 6th to get their tickets.
Right. But they're still third party,
Yeah, third party. They're probably getting them and then putting them up.
Right. Obviously, they don't have the tickets in hand yet because the game hasn't been announced, but
correct.
Yeah.
And they're never going to be in hand because they're going to be online, but whatever.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Like,
I do.
They don't actually have control of the tickets.
I understand.
James Costanzo, playoff bound. Go Irish. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Someone was asking how much we get, like me and Vince, Jesse, like specifically.
Like we get tickets?
No, of like cuts of the super chat. Someone was asking the cut of the super chat.
I think the correct question would be what cut does Google get of the super chat?
Yes.
I think that's a more appropriate question.
More of the super chat. We ought to just start up an infinite GoFundMe page and people can just like send their money there instead of the super chat.
Or like a Venmo.
It's very nice. I mean, we still get some of it, but
of course, I think like
Google gets
65%, something like that, 70%. But like we should just have like a Venmo that we put into the chat and we have it up. And if somebody Venmos us during a show, we read it. We need to look into that.
I like that a lot.
That sounds about right, John. It says Vince gets a quarter for every super chat. It's pretty close.
Tom, I don't know if Tom is still here. He put this up earlier and I started, but he said, meant to compliment my latest questions to Marcus Freeman. I'm trying to remember what they were last week. Oh, it was about the recruiting dead period since they couldn't stay out on the West Coast anymore and the possibility of hosting a home game Thanksgiving weekend instead of traveling since this is something you and I have talked about, I think, quite a bit. Trevor didn't seem as hot on it when I talked about this last week. Just the week, like this week that we're in right now, used to be they would go to either Stanford or USC. They would stay on the coaches would stay on the West Coast and recruit. And that was their rationale for needing to finish on the West Coast every year. Well, this is a recruiting dead period now. This week, the NCAA has changed it, which means the coaches can't stay on the West Coast and recruit, which means, assuming that continues going like this is always going to be a dead period going forward. And the reason they made it a dead period is because of the college football, like the expanded college football playoff and so many more teams involved in that. Plus you're going to have coaching churn. Plus you're going to have, you still have a signing period coming up here. So they were trying to take some things off the coaches' plates by, removing that. So, like my point is, hey, if you're taking away the need to finish on the West Coast, that opens up, potential home games Thanksgiving.
That'd be great.
Instead of heading out there.
That'd be great. I don't want to do it at the expense of getting USC off the calendar, like off the schedule.
Right.
Because I want USC will be the question. Schedule.
Is USC agreeable to coming here the end of November? Probably not.
But I would, honestly, I would look at trying to move USC to the middle of the schedule then every year. Like I would be okay with that.
You'd say Notre Dame, do it in October every year. See, I said do that with Stanford. Make Stanford October, whether you're home or away, and then work on getting USC out here for Thanksgiving.
I personally would just make Stanford part of the ACC package, and so like they would rotate just like the rest of the ACC.
I would agree
teams.
with that.
You know what I mean?
There's
like,
still been some talk that
I know. I just
Stanford want to try to make it annual still. So
I hope not. But I would do whatever we had to do to make sure that USC stays on the schedule, whether that's putting them at the end, in the middle, however. But like on that off year when it's a home game for Notre Dame and Notre Dame is has USC at home, on the odd years, then I would be more than happy to have a home game in Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving weekend. It doesn't have to be out in California like that.
Yeah.
That is an outdated philosophy at this point that you've got to finish the season out in California. That's outdated. So
I like the idea. I like the idea because of all these other rivalry games going on at the end of the year of having Notre Dame USC always be Thanksgiving weekend, whether it's in LA or here. Again, USC has got to be open to it. I mean, they've got to be open to continuing the series to begin with, because that's not even, finalized yet. But, my point is USC's in the Big Ten now. They're not going to get to play home games in November all the time. They're going to have to come to the Midwest at some point in November. So what difference does it make if you come to South Bend Thanksgiving weekend every other year?
Great point. It's a great point.
I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. I would just think it would be really cool if that could be the year, end of the year every year. Notre Dame, USC, with all those other great rivalries going on, because it's one of the greatest rivalries in college football. Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Boom, baby. Let's go.
All right.
Let's go.
So we did it a little bit differently this Monday. The last couple of Mondays, we've been starting the show with our college football playoff predictions. What is the bracket? What are the seeds going to look like? What's the bracket going to look like? This is the last ranking coming out Tuesday before next weekend's post-conference championship game rankings. That'll be the real deal.
Yeah.
This is the final warm-up act. Okay. All right. So I want to see what you got here.
Okay. Let me pull it up here because, of course, I left my notebook in the other room.
It's okay.
But that's okay. I've got it because I sent a picture of it to Brian. So I should be okay. So I can pull it up here. Here it is. Okay. So the biggest – okay, so what are the questions going in? I think that's the rub, right? What are the questions? So question number one, how far down does Ohio State fall after losing to Michigan?
Right.
I think that's the biggest question mark. Okay. The next question is, how far down does Miami fall after losing to Syracuse?
Right.
The third question, which is not as important as the other two, is, does Notre Dame finally jump Penn State this week, or is it going to stay the same? Okay. Those are the three questions for me as I was filling out my top 15. Okay. My answers to those questions, based on what has transpired so far with the committee, my answers to those questions, I have Ohio State falling to 7 behind.
That's what I've got.
That SEC block, right? It was a bigger block before.
Georgia and Tennessee.
Yeah.
I've got Georgia and Tennessee at 5 and 6.
Yes.
Is that what you've got?
I do. So now that block is now 2 teams because other teams are falling by the wayside.
Yeah.
Because remember, it was a 5-team block 2 weeks ago, and now it has shrunk to a 2-team block. But I still feel like Ohio State will fall behind both of those teams. So Ohio State 7.
The Southeastern block is crumbling.
It really is, man. It really is like the Berlin Wall. It's coming down.
That's right. Alabama fell, and the Southeastern block is just falling behind them. They were the wall holding everyone out for so long.
Now, here's the other piece of the puzzle, right? So Miami, where do they fall?
Hold it. Did you say Ohio State at number 7? I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yep.
So we both got Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State 5, 6, and 7. So
correct.
We're in that same range. Okay.
Yes, sir.
How far? I dropped Miami to 15. How far did you drop?
I dropped them to 13.
Okay.
So, but they're still out. Like here's the thing. And this is why this Tuesday ranking is going to be so important, because everybody's talking about, well, the ACC could still get 3 teams. No, they can't. And I will find it fascinating if they don't drop Miami to out this week, because if they drop them to 12, 13 in that neighborhood, they're not making the playoff because they're idle this coming weekend, and they're not going to leap other idle teams. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to leap idle teams. So I think I think Miami's out at this point.
I do too. How high do you have SMU? Because I think that's a question, because you just said you don't think the ACC is going to get 2 teams. Obviously, if Clemson beats SMU, that would be the scenario you're talking about. So where do you have SMU right now?
So I said they're not going to get 3 teams. There's a chance
3.
they
I'm
get
sorry.
2.
I thought you said 2.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I said, yeah. So there's a chance.
There's no way they're getting 3.
No. Somebody said that like today on some show. I was like, what are you talking about? Miami's out. But anyway, I have SMU at 8, right behind Ohio State.
That's where I have them. We're pretty lockstep on everything that we've said.
Yeah.
So
and the reason I have them at 8 is because, look, they're beating the crap out of teams. I mean, they are winning big. They're doing what they're supposed to do. If they're a conference champion, it's not going to matter where they're ranked, because they're going to leapfrog everybody to one of the top 4, or they might nestle in right there, like in a 6, 7, 8 range. That's a possibility if they win. And that's a possibility if they end up being the 5th ranked conference champion. That's a possibility. Now,
yeah,
what are they going to do with the Big 12 champion? That's the biggest thing. Also, if you're Boise State, right? So you've got Arizona State and Iowa State playing each other. That's a ranked matchup, right? So does the winner get a little extra oomph? If Arizona State wins that game, are they going to leapfrog Boise State? That's the question. I don't think so. I don't think they should. There's a lot of people think
I think they deserve to. I know they've got one more loss.
Yeah.
But we can talk about the overall quality of the Big 12. It's a competitive conference. I do think that, like who Arizona State has played and who Arizona State has beaten, I think both of those things favor Arizona State over Boise State.
Okay. So that means Arizona
Boise State, just
4.
like Penn State, is propped up by who they lost to as
That's
much
fair.
as anything else.
That's fair. That's fair. And the thing about Penn State is they'll have more losses than Boise State if Boise State wins theirs. And yeah. But anyway, that's for next week's discussion. Where do you have Arizona State? Because if you have SMU 8,
Jesse says Dabo's not losing to SMU.
I don't know about that, but we'll see.
Where do I have Boise?
Yeah, where do you have Boise and where do you have Arizona State?
So here I'll go backwards from 15. I'll go ahead and go through this. So I've got Miami at 15.
Okay.
I've got South Carolina at 14. I've got Arizona State 13, Ole Miss 12, Alabama 11. I've got Boise State 10. Then I've got Indiana 9. And I know we can obviously, there's a debate about, Alabama and Ole Miss and their 3 losses versus Indiana's 1 loss and all that. The bottom line is Indiana's got 1 loss.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Keep them where they are. SMU at 8, Ohio State at 7, Tennessee 6, Georgia at 5. And we'll save that, top part here. So I got Boise at 10 right now. And I have Arizona State 3 spots behind them.
Okay. I have the exact same, except I have Miami and Arizona flipped from yours.
Oh, so you have Miami and Arizona State flipped is what you said?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I've got Miami 13, Arizona State 15, and I believe you have Arizona State 13 and Miami 15. So that's correct. The only difference. Everything else is lockstep up to 5.
Correct.
So if we're going to break it down, look, I don't.
By the way, Bub says anytime SMU can pay players, they're a force to be reckoned with. Could not agree more. I get what you're saying, going Pony Express and all that kind of stuff, like going way back. But I think this is actually a fairly underrated thing. Like people keep treating SMU like the little engine that could, completely ignoring the fact that those guys aren't, they didn't just show up there and play for nothing. Those guys are getting a lot of money.
There's a lot of money down there in Dallas.
Well.
There's a lot of money down there.
That's exactly right. Yeah. But I don't feel like
everybody's still treating them like a group of 5 team, Sean.
Yeah,
because this is their
because
first
they
year.
moved up this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, it's hard to shake your thoughts on SMU and who they are. And look, I get it.
Right.
I get it. But you watch their games. They're a good football team. They're a good football team.
Yeah. So based on what I have Boise as the 4 seed, SMU as the 3 seed.
Yep.
And then I've got I left the last team off the bracket here.
Well, our 11th, our bracket is going to be identical because.
So I guess I would have Notre Dame playing Boise then, right?
If you have Notre Dame as the 5, which we haven't discussed yet.
I do not.
Where's Notre Dame ranked?
Hold it,
3 or 4?
I have Notre Dame as the 6th seed. I've got Notre Dame as the 4, and I know.
Okay.
Listen, I know that you want Notre Dame ahead of Penn State. Last week when we did our predictions, I had Notre Dame ahead of Penn State, but that's not the way the committee saw it. So,
yeah,
I
think they could very well keep them there just till it's a 1-3 matchup in the Big Ten championship.
Right.
For no other reason than
the
that.
5 seed and Notre Dame is the 6 seed because of that.
Yeah. So Notre Dame, in your bracket, Notre Dame would play Alabama in the first round. And then SMU in the second round.
I think I messed somebody up. Hold on.
Yeah, because
okay, so let's go through this real quick. Oregon is the 1.
Yep.
Texas is the 2.
Yep.
SMU is the 3.
Correct.
Boise is the 4.
Correct.
And then, so now do you have Penn State or Notre Dame as the 5?
Well, I have Notre Dame as the 5. You have Penn State as the 5. So that just flips.
So basically, just whichever of those
it's
teams.
Fine.
Okay. So then, who are your 11 and 12? Because I think that in that range, we were all like pretty lockstep.
No, we are. So 12 is Arizona State because they're the 5th.
That's what it is.
They're the 5th conference champ. And then Alabama is 11.
Right.
Because so Alabama's the last team in.
Right.
Alabama's the last team in, which means Ole Miss is the first team out. And so there will be the conversation about, well, Ole Miss should be ahead of Alabama or Alabama should be ahead of Ole Miss because it matters because whoever's above is the last team in. So that conversation all of a sudden is one that matters. So the way our bracket's set up is, if your bracket sets up that Alabama and Notre Dame would play in the first round, Notre Dame hosting Alabama, and then the winner gets SMU. The 12-5 would be Arizona State and Penn State, the winner getting Boise State.
Right.
Right. And then on the top, you've got Ohio State traveling to Tennessee and then taking on Oregon. And then IU travels to Georgia. Winner takes on Texas.
Yes, exactly. And now look, like I said, I think Notre Dame at this point in the season deserves to be ahead of Penn State. I think, we talked about it last week. If you look at all the metrics and, like the stat rankings and everything else, and you just watch the two teams play football, Notre Dame far and away has more explosive offensive playmakers than what Penn State has. Penn State has a good defense. They've got a solid enough quarterback, but they don't have the playmakers offensively that Notre Dame has. That's the biggest difference. I do think that even though Penn State's defense is good, Notre Dame's defense is still good. But the reason I put Notre Dame back last week, I put Notre Dame ahead of Penn State, just like Vince did. But like I said, that's not how the committee saw it.
Right.
And I felt like there was a better case to move Notre Dame ahead of Penn State last week than this week. So that's why I just went ahead and moved Notre Dame back behind Penn State, not going on like what I think it should be, like what I think the committee is ultimately going to do.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest with you, like I have Notre Dame at 3. I got Penn State at 4 because I just keep, riding that train. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter because if Oregon does to Penn State what I think Oregon's going to do to Penn State, Notre Dame then leaps Penn State and it doesn't matter anymore. And Notre Dame gets the 5 seed. You know what I mean? So that's why I was on the show last night. I was like, look, if you're a Notre Dame fan and you want Notre Dame to get the 5 and all of this other stuff, then you need to root for all the favorites in the conference championship games to win.
Exactly right.
You got to root for chalk.
That's what Bub said. If Oregon and Texas win, Notre Dame should get the 5 seed.
Agreed. It'll all look. I hate to say it, because this is how it's been all season. As long as Notre Dame takes care of business, and that's what they've done, and then just sit back, it all takes care of itself. And that's exactly what is going to happen on Saturday. As long as it goes chalk, specifically in the SEC and the Big Ten. The other ones I don't think really matter. SEC and Big Ten, if they go chalk, Notre Dame's the 5. Just like that.
Yeah.
And they're in the exact same spot they would be if they were undefeated.
Which is crazy.
It's mind-boggling.
All this hand-wringing, all this stress, all this pressure, all season long.
And they're in the same place they would be if they were
right back in the same place.
It's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. And just to add just a little bit of something to this whole thing, if it was still a 14 playoff, Notre Dame's in, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just
even crazier.
Right?
Even crazier. Wyatt says UNLV is ranked right now, but he thinks Army should be more deserving than them. And I had a string of texts from someone I know who was asking me about Army and, the possibility that Army could still get an at-large bid or even an automatic qualifier bid. Look, we're all, God bless America, like Pat McAfee said a couple of weeks ago, I'm picking Notre Dame, but I still love my country. I still love America. It's
right.
Sorry, Army. The Army's just not getting in. The strength of schedule is horrible. They haven't beaten anybody good at all, and they got obliterated by the only good team on their schedule, and that, of course, is Notre Dame. Army is just they're not getting in. I like the AP had them ranked this week. I will be curious to see if the College Football Playoff Committee even ranks them again at the tail end like they were a couple of weeks ago. They're just not getting in. UNLV, well, UNLV is going to obviously have to beat Boise State. But my point is, even if Army wins the AAC, UNLV is going to get in over
Correct.
Army. It's just Army's not going to happen in the playoff. They would have had to have beaten Notre Dame.
Yep.
And it's USMA.
We got an Oregon
87.
fan in the chat. Sean, Darth Ducky. Is it
Oregon wins, you guys get that 5 seed. Part of me wants to throw the game just for the 5 seed, also hoping Bama is 12 and we can host them at Autzen. That'd be fun as well.
I understand.
He wants to throw the game just for the 5. So he wants the 5 seed just so that they can host him. I don't think your coach would see things that way.
No, well, he definitely wouldn't. And Bama's not going to get the 12. There's zero chance of that happening because Bama is going to be their idol, obviously, and they're the in our seeding, they're the 11 right now. They're not going to be 12 because there's not going to be 5 conference champions that are ranked higher than Alabama. Right, the 5th conference champion would have to be ranked higher than Alabama to bump them down to the 12.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen. So let's be honest. Bama's not getting the 12.
I concur. So there was something Fred G. Sanford said it before saying it again. Don't be surprised if we go after Miller Moss in the portal.
No, Fred. That's never going to happen. Ever. They're not taking a quarterback that got benched when they have talent in their own room. It's not going to happen, Fred. But
right.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you.
Look, the pretty consistent refrain that we've heard is, Riley Leonard was going to be kind of the last portal bridge. And now the way they've recruited this room, it's in a lot different shape than it was 3 years ago. And
look,
I don't see that happening.
No.
Next year. I don't see that.
And here's the thing. Is there a chance that Notre Dame hits the portal for a quarterback for depth, depending on if somebody leaves? That's a chance. There's a chance that happens. I mean, yes, sure. There's a chance that occurs, but they're not going to the portal for a starting quarterback. That is not going to happen. I'm sorry.
I am much like USMA reminding Vince about the Denbrock situation.
I get it.
I am much more convinced about this one.
Thank you.
Like 2 completely different things.
I thought you were going
As I said earlier in the show, Vince will run around his house at midnight in his birthday suit if either CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie is not starting the season opener next year. Non-injury.
Really, and I take that bet with open eyes, man, like wide open eyes.
That's why I felt confident. That's why I felt confident enough to make that bet for you.
Yeah, so. I feel really good about that one. I feel really good about that one.
Again, might even get you the red hot chili pepper sock just in case.
Hey, maybe they bring in Miller Moss to be a backup or something like that. I guess that's a possibility, but they're not going to bring in Miller Moss to start.
And Miller Moss ain't going to come here to be a backup.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Right.
Like he's leaving USC because he obviously thinks that he can start, but
right.
You know, like I said, you know, like
plenty of other places that would be more than happy to take Miller Moss as their quarterback. Notre Dame isn't one of them.
Correctamundo. This is correct, Brent. Marcus Freeman believes the next starting quarterback is on the roster.
And you know who else believes that? Mike Denbrock. And you know who else believes that? Gino Guidugli.
Guidugli. That's exactly
right. All those people believe that is the case.
I don't doubt this, DK, that he goes to an SEC team.
It's definitely possible.
Not doubt that at all. Wouldn't doubt that, like, Ole Miss is high on the list. So Marcus Freeman was asked about Christian Gray's play after the game Saturday.
Yeah, he had to reload. You hear me say that all the time. Reload. Get your mind back to the place where it needs to be so you can execute. Right. And that was a challenge I had for the team before the game, but him specifically, like, hey, reload. Don't let the last play affect the next play. And when there was a play in the first half, I thought it did. It was after the big catch, the next play, he kind of got the PI. And Christian Gray's a great player, but he had to get back into that moment where hey, nothing else matters but doing your job, right? For us to achieve team glory. Don't let anything personal affect that. And I'm proud of him. Because he did, he has faith, and he's a really good player, and he went and showed that in the second half.
So, Vince, do you feel any differently about Christian Gray after watching him Saturday?
I feel like I know that he's a pretty resilient guy and is never going to quit, and he's going to reload, as Marcus Freeman likes to put it. I don't think he's ever been tested like this before, and not only has he not been tested like this, he also hasn't played this poorly in a Notre Dame uniform. Look, he played bad. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He played poorly, right? But he made a play.
I think he played poorly by the standards that we've seen from him. Because, like,
sure,
Gordy 100% says, has he ever had a game that bad? No, but
not in a Notre Dame uniform.
But again, like you talked about Lincoln Riley having that little earpiece into his quarterback's ear, Maava, and like. When USC got that touchdown, those throws at the end of the first half, I think that dictated it's like, okay, I think we found something. Because like rewatching that game and seeing all the commentary and everything, like social media that blew up, afterwards about Christian Gray, it's like I was just expecting from start to finish like the worst performance we've ever seen. Now, like you said, you're not going to sugarcoat. There were still some good plays that Christian Gray made.
100%. He started out the game great.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was making plays. He obviously had a couple PIs, but like even before what ended up the pick six, when he's going up against that 6'6" guy and he had the pass breakup over there, like, did he have the kind of game any of us expected? No. But the fact is, Maava, he threw the ball 47 times and the ball had to go someplace.
Sure.
Like the ball had to go somewhere and they weren't having that much success trying to go other places. And, Al Golden tried some zone. They played some man. They did some different stuff, I think, to try to protect him. So I kind of write it off as, look, they decided that Christian Gray was the guy they had to pick on. They used a lot of that size to do it. Does he have some things to get cleaned up? Yeah. But, even Darrelle Revis, Darrell Green, my guy Trayvon Diggs, who led the NFL in interceptions a couple years ago, he would still give up some plays because teams were throwing at him all the time. Can Christian Gray continue to make enough substantial defensive plays when he needs to? Because, again, USC had some talent specific to wide receiver. They always recruit those wide receivers well. So, like, I'm not just going to like throw the baby out with the bathwater. Did he have a bad game? Yeah. But to me, he did enough, especially at the end, to redeem.
Oh, 100%. Like it showed me that he has redemption in his spirit. Like he's not going to quit. He's going to play the entire game, right? Everybody has a bad game. I'm glad he got it out of his system because I don't anticipate that that's going to be the case, moving forward. And this is the best group of receivers and the best offense that they faced from a passing standpoint. No doubt about it. And look, Leonard Moore had a great game. And I think Christian Gray struggled, but he made the play in the end when it mattered, man. He literally won the game for Notre Dame, or at least sealed it, right? So you can't be too upset with the way that he played when he goes out and does what he did at the end of the game, right?
And I mean,
it's
like Uncle Mike Talks Football says, if we didn't have 2 pick sixes, Gray would be in everybody's doghouse. Well, don't forget the first pick six was his.
Exactly.
And think of the play that he made, that move that he made to get it. Like he made one of those plays. And that's what Marcus Freeman was talking about. And like so much of that position specifically is just that short memory and having the confidence to keep going forward.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He made a play when it counted. Would you like to have seen the other stuff cleaned up? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, Decaf made a good point. The pass rush was not getting home. That doesn't help anything.
Right.
And again, USC's talent was wide receiver. And they decided they needed to pick on someone, and they picked on Gray. Like we've seen, in the not too distant past or around the same time, Benjamin Morrison was the same age, like quarterbacks and defensive coordinators were still throwing at him. And sometimes, they'd succeed. Other times, Morrison interception, like, I don't think we saw Benjamin Morrison quite turned around the way we saw Gray turned around the other day. But again, man, like, I think it's a great learning experience for him to go up against. Those are probably, I won't even say probably, those were the best receivers, maybe other than Louisville and USC, the best receivers that Notre Dame has seen all season.
Agreed. And like I said, I'd rather that happen now than 3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now or whatever the case may be. So
there's something to build off now. There's game film. You won the game. You made a great play. But there's game film now that you can sit back and look at and learn from. And I think that that'll be just as important as any successful play that he had. So here's Gray on if he knew he could still make a play before he had that 99-yard pick six.
Yeah, definitely. In my head, I said, all right, no more holding back. I just got to break through the chains. Like, that's what I said in my head, and I just screamed it out because the best thing to do is just kind of scream it out and then just go ball.
All right, so there's just scream it out. Got that ball. Christian Gray getting that pick six, Vince, was blank.
Oh, it was cathartic for me. No, it was, and I'm sure.
What
it was
would Dylan Daddario say it was?
I know, right? I should get him on here. But it was. I'm sure it was much more cathartic for him. Like, yes, finally, something happens positive, and he's able to make a play, and I was super happy for him when that all went down. As happy as I was for the team and for me as a fan, and all of everything that it meant, I was even happier for him specifically because he was having a rough day, right? And that's a great way to finish it off, man. Last play, that's the one that matters.
That's right. Like if I'm going to use a baseball analogy, like you can swing and miss twice and still hit a home run before you're out. Right. Or you can have an 0-for-3 day and strike out all 3 times and still hit the game-winning home run, which I think, was something along the lines of what Pete Alonso did in the playoffs against the Phillies, a month and a half or whatever ago. Like he wasn't having a great game up until that. And that's the great thing, about sports to me, Vince, is you can look absolutely brutal on the one hand and then turn around and flip it and come out with a heroic play like that. And that's what he did, and again, it's just like, you got to keep plugging away, man. And these guys are so young and so talented. And that's part of the deal as well. And they're also so well coached, and that goes a long way. So
agreed.
Fill in the blank. Xavier Watts, giving the USC sideline the business on his way to his 100-yard pick six, was blank.
Iconic. It was iconic. I noticed that as soon as it happened, I started texting people. I was like, "Can you see him looking at things?" I mean, it was freaking awesome as he was running down the sideline. You could just see his head turn. And I was really hoping I would get more reaction from the USC players as I went back and I watched it like 100 times trying to see if there was reaction from the USC players, but it was just like deadpan, like they had no emotion whatsoever. I wanted to see them trying to chirp back.
I did thought I see like one guy kind of smiling as he ran by, actually, which I thought was interesting.
That's great. That is awesome. That's fantastic.
If you can tell me where I'm going to go with this, I won't do it. Like if you can predict where I'm going to go right now. You got nothing? No predictions?
Nothing.
All right. So I'm like, when you look at this entire sequence, first Christian Gray's like, you got that from Vickers. Work in Essex County. You pawn it off as your own. And then Watts jumps in. And he's like, how you like me now? I'm going Goodwill Hunting here, by the way. And then Adon Schuler's like throwing the deuces at the end. And he's like, my boy's wicked smart, taking it to the end zone. So that was my take on it. Like I was trying to imagine the things that Xavier Watts was saying, because he did it twice, right? And so you did it the first time, he did it the second time. I'm trying to imagine the things that he's saying, and it was just absolutely hilarious. Typically my references, come from that pool of, like the Vince Vaughn moneymakers, like Wedding Crashers, Old School, Dodgeball,
classic,
or like Tarantino. But the Goodwill Hunting scene, I won't even say it's underrated, because of course it finishes with, I got a number. How do you like them apples?
Them apples.
So,
yeah.
It's funny thinking about those guys talking with Boston accents, though, because
I know, right?
What, Omaha, New Jersey, and Missouri. So fill in the blank. Tyler Buckner's fake punt pass to Mitchell Evans was blank.
The ballsiest call Marcus Freeman's ever made. They were on the 26-yard line.
It
was 4th and 9.
You were not even close to midfield where you would think that something like that might be coming.
And it was 7-7, Sean. It was 7-7 at that moment. And it was 4th and 9 on the 26-yard line. And Marcus Freeman's like, yeah, we're going to fake punt it here. And we're going to have our walk-on quarterback throw it to Mitchell Evans on a throwback. I mean, so many things had to go right on that play, because you had all the action going to the right, first of all, with Jeremiah Love, and
everything had to fall for it.
And the whole team had to fall for it, because you had a one-man route. One man.
Yep.
And that man was Mitchell Evans.
And when he threw the ball, I'm like, man, I don't know. Like this, it seemed to take forever to get
floated
there.
It to him.
Yes.
And obviously it ended up working out. And here's the thing. The USC kid only took like 3 steps in the wrong direction, but it was enough. Obviously,
just enough
it was
that he was able to make it.
I mean, because if Mitchell Evans isn't open there, I'm not really sure what they do, because Tyler Buckner's not in a position to run it. He's 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So you got to gain like 19 yards.
If he's in trouble, if he bobbles that, if something happens,
There's so many things could have gone wrong, and yet everything went right. I mean, that was, man.
Stones, man.
Whew. In a 7-7 game.
7-7. 7-7. And I love to see that that they're willing to keep going back to it. Like obviously the Virginia game, when it gets, called back because of the illegal formation or whatever. This was a lot different. And, someone asked us on Twitter, like, okay, when 26 goes out there now, someone's going to start spotting him out there, and it's going to be harder to figure out. Can you switch his number? Sure, switch his number. Why not? I mean, they're still going to find him on the roster and figure it out.
Switch his number anytime you want.
But
there's guys that switch numbers all the time. Justin Fisher switched his number in the middle of the season because he was the same number as Kennedy Urlacher, and they were both on the kickoff team, so he had to switch his number. Like it happens all the time. You could do that. You don't have to announce it to anybody. I mean, you can do it, and you can just be a different number, and it doesn't really make any bit of difference. One of these days, they're actually
because they could even switch it during the game. That whole the fiasco with like the Lions and the Cowboys last year on that. Like the guy with a different number reporting, and you can switch number jerseys during the game, especially, and then in college you can, to make sure that you don't have duplicate guys with the same numbers and stuff like that. You just have, like you said, you have to announce it.
So, one of these days, the last two punt fakes have been action to the right. Actually, the ball goes to the left, right? One of these days, the action is going to go to the right and it's going to stay to the right, but we'll see if that ever actually takes place. The attention's always on Jeremiah Love. That's the thing. Both times, I believe Jeremiah Love was in the action that goes to the right, and then they come back to the left. So, yeah.
Herrick said that Buckner hadn't thrown a pass from scrimmage in a year and a month. And, look, you've got an incredible athlete who's a walk-on. We've seen him do some other stuff out there on special teams, and he's run the scout team against the 2 service academies. But, it's like you can have the stones to call the fakes, but they've still got to work as well. And when you got an athlete like that, it ups your certainty. You're not just asking the punter to make that throw, like some special teams units that you see do. 100%. It's like you're trusting a guy who's actually played frickin' quarterback
and won a lot of football games, to be honest with you, and thrown a lot of touchdown passes and run for a lot of touchdowns. And so, he's an athlete who can get the ball where it needs to go.
Thank you very much, Tom. We appreciate you and appreciate all those super chats we've been seeing today as well. Appreciate everybody watching and listening today. I mean, if you can't have fun when the regular season's over and they're going to the playoff, when are you going to have fun talking about football?
11-1, baby. 11-1. I texted Brian yesterday. I was like, so is it too early to start talking about bowl travel? He goes, I guarantee you can go to the first one. Thanks, buddy.
All right, then.
All right. I'll take it.
I think the first one, the home game, might end up being my only opportunity. I think we looked at the schedule, kind of when the dates are, and that might be my only opportunity. So
I think you might be right.
Unless Brian wants to pay to fly me around, like a little bit extra or something.
A little extra, yeah. You never know.
Guessing no.
You never know.
So, a lot of reaction to the fight at the end of the Michigan-Ohio State game. Both of the Big Ten fined both of the schools $100,000, but Kirk Herbstreit says the conference needs to look at the film, suspend all the players who were the aggressors for the good of the sport. Do you buy or sell that?
I mean, look, I hate both teams, so of course I'd be like, suspend them all!
Set them all down. I don't care who it is.
And it actually surprises me a little bit that Kirk Herbstreit, who's an Ohio State alum, is like, suspend him. That does surprise me a little bit because it's his school, right? I would say this. I think there's somewhere in between that you could go. Like, you should look at it, and you should, these guys are all making money. Fine them. Fine them some money. I don't really have a problem with that, to be honest with you. These guys are all making good money. Fine them. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous and it shouldn't happen. So there should be repercussions because those kids aren't going to feel that $100,000 fine. And I think there should be some sort of a penalty. I don't know that benching these kids from a bowl game is the answer. I don't know that that's the answer. That seems a little too
This
much.
is a massive sell for me. It's a massive sell.
Okay.
For me.
All
Do
right.
we really need suspensions? I mean, this is a rivalry game.
Agreed.
Things were going to be heated. And we were all there. I think you were there when Michigan State tried to plant the flag, in Notre Dame Stadium several years ago.
Yeah.
I think you were, maybe that was a
I
little
remember
bit before you were there.
Didn't Boston College do the same thing? They were taking turf from Notre Dame
Boston
Stadium.
College trying to rip, it's like
this isn't a
people
new
are going to
thing.
get pretty emotional after a rivalry game. Now, I have a bigger problem with Ryan Day just standing there and look like he was.
I know.
I guess he was shell-shocked, but it's like, how about you control your team? You're standing right
exactly.
there. How about you control your team? The conference already fined each of them $100,000. I like doing that better than suspending the players. I mean, I don't necessarily have now, again, if you're going to tell me this specific Ohio State player did this or whatever, but it's like, you want to plant that ugly thing on this field right now, the guy who grabbed the flag and the pole away from it, I've got no problem with, obviously things got a little crazy after that. I've got a bigger problem with the security guys with the freaking, spraying the pepper spray on everybody after it looked like the fight was basically kind of toned down at that point. And all of a sudden the guy starts pepper spraying everybody. Come on. it's still college football. And like Stymie said, there were a lot of other games where things got chippy over the weekend, but that happens. They are rivalry games. You don't want to do you really want to take that out of college football? I'm not saying that it's good that it escalates into an actual fight, but you don't want to take that spirit out of college football. So it's a no-go for me. Like to actually see the players suspended. Right.
I completely agree with
it's
that.
One thing it happens during the game, but this was after the game.
But I don't have a problem with some fines. I'm not going to lie.
No,
I don't have a problem with that.
Hit the schools in the pocketbook. Yeah.
If they can make the money, they can spend the money. I'm cool with the fine. I'm talking about fining some players. I'm cool with that too.
Yeah.
These, and I'm guessing, look, every player on Notre Dame's team makes something, right? Fine them $1,000. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a huge sum, but I think there needs to be something. You know what I mean? Just to like the next time that happens, maybe like, well, I don't want to lose $1,000, so maybe I'm not.
I think that like once revenue sharing comes, that'll be an interesting conversation because that's coming next. You know, like with NIL, it's different because those are obviously supposed to come from third party sources, but now with revenue sharing, it's coming directly from the school. So
yeah.
I'd be curious, I don't know what the wording in any of that looks like, but I would be curious to see if that's something that's a possibility.
I agree with you completely. Suspensions are ridiculous. Like that's taking it way too far. Yeah. Way too far.
Yeah. So Notre Dame flipped the number 1 punter in the nation from Wisconsin today, Eric Schmidt. Let's go live to Vince DiDario for all the details.
Kid's a stud, man. I've seen him kick twice in person. Once at the Notre Dame specialist camp, and then once down in Tennessee for the big national camp that the Coles kicking people run. Kid's a stud. He's a big kid, first of all. Like, he's a big kid. He's big and thick. He looks like a defensive lineman, essentially. He can kick the ball a mile. I put it on the board today. His charted kickoff was 91 yards, Sean. 91 yards his kickoff. Wow. Like, the kid's got a massive leg. And to put that into perspective, colleges kick off from the 35-yard line. So getting it to the goal line is a 65-yard kick. Getting it to the back of the goal of the end zone is a 75-yard kick. He was kicking it 90 yards, 91 yards. Like, the kid has a massive leg. I don't know how accurate he is because obviously all of the highlights and all of the video and all of that are makes from a place kicking standpoint, but he doesn't focus on place kicking. He place kicked for his high school. He kicked a 55-yarder. He obviously has a big leg, right? But he focuses on punting and kicking off, right? So I'm curious to see, how that matriculates to Notre Dame. Is he going to focus on all three now? I don't think he was brought in to be the kicker. So
seems like punter is like at the front of the title.
Punter and kickoff. Like, he's a punter and a kickoff specialist. Again, can he kick? Yeah, all punters can kick. All kickers can punt, right? It's just a matter of what are you focusing on. I never saw him kick a field goal. He was always just punting at these camps and stuff. He's a punter and a kickoff guy. So
this is Goins' only year, left.
He could easily be the kickoff guy next year, easily.
Right. And and so that Biaggi said last week that James Rendell the NCAA has given him at least one more season. They're still working on 2, but if it's only 1,
that's perfect.
Then you've got this guy, because then like USMA 87 was saying not going for the portal kicker
No, they're still going to the portal for a kicker.
Yeah,
I almost guarantee it.
Because I agree with what you're saying. I think that the punter now is taken care of, and then this guy Schmidt is at least the kickoff guy for the next couple of years potentially, and then you still go to the portal for a proven field goal guy.
Yep, I absolutely think that is what is going to take place, and here's the other thing I do want to dispel the myth that Notre Dame decided to go for a high school kid because of the kicking woes that have taken place at Notre Dame. Eric Schmidt has been on the radar for Notre Dame, and he's been offered by Notre Dame forever. Like he was offered by Notre Dame before he committed to Wisconsin. So we're talking like back in last spring he was offered. Notre Dame's still going to go after portal kickers. That's still what they do. Like Marty Biaggi said that to me. He's like, we go for portal kickers. We want proven guys that can do it. And so they're still going to do that. But a kid like this only comes around once in a while. Yeah. And when that happens, you offer him. I mean, that's what you do. And he committed to Wisconsin. That's his home school. And Marty Biaggi kept on him, and they got him to flip, which is awesome. I mean, that's fantastic. You still got to go after the number one punter and kickoff guy in the country. He's the number 26 kicker, though. So I think that's important to understand, too. He's a five-star kicker, but he's number 26. There's 25 better kickers in front of him. But he's probably one of the better guys that can do everything.
But the other, like, I think kickers, even punters, but, you know, I think this is why you go to the portal for them. Like, they're harder, especially when they're young. Like, they're harder to really know what you're going to get until they're on campus. And
100%
for you. So.
100%. So, Herrick, I hope you were listening because I just explained it all. But he is primarily a punter and a kickoff guy who can kick field goals. I just don't know that that's going to be the focus when he comes to Notre Dame. Maybe it will be.
Maybe by his junior and senior season or something, depending on, you know, but that, again, like that gives them time to get him on their, you know, on campus in their practice, see how he does with the field goals. It's just different. The pressure is different. The stadiums
100%.
Are different, you know, like how your leg is actually going to mature and all that.
Oh yeah.
Kind of stuff, you know, like
100%, all of that.
What was the kicker? Like, God, this has been a million years ago, but you know, the guy that ended up at Florida State, I think it was down to Notre Dame and Florida State. This was in the 1990s, and he ended up at Florida State, and it never panned out.
Yeah.
You know, like the way everyone thought it was.
He was supposed to be
the number one kicker. Yeah, like the mental aspect.
It could be a mental thing. It could be a physical thing. It could be a million different issue, you know, the operation, you know, snap, hold, kick, you know, all like there's just a million different things that can go wrong and you know, all of those different things. But look, at the end of the day, Eric Schmidt, that's a huge get for the special teams at Notre Dame. He's on a full scholarship, and rightfully so. The kid can boom the ball. You know, we'll see what happens as far as being a place kicker, but I fully anticipate Notre Dame to get a place kicker in the portal. Fully anticipate that.
The least surprising news since Vince D'Addario voting Notre Dame number one in his latest poll, Matt Eberflus, fired by the Chicago Bears. It's the first time we've had to talk about it. Thank you, Michael. Scott Bentley.
Wow.
There you go.
Impressive.
Well done. Man, how was your Thanksgiving, by the way, watching that? Were you watching it with your father-in-law?
Yeah, who's a Lions fan.
I
had already properly prepared myself for what I was about to witness. And then they gave me hope. And then it got pulled out from under me like a rug.
It's a dangerous thing, Vince.
I know. Hope is a very dangerous thing. Look, he deserved to go. Like that last 32 seconds was I've seen middle school games called better in the last 32 seconds. I mean, that was unbelievable to me. It was unbelievable.
At some point, you obviously, you know, like let's say when the freaking clock gets to 10 or 12, like you've got to do it because that still gives you a time to run a play. And if the play, you know, is ineffective, then, you know, like if it's incomplete, for example, the clock is stopped.
Right.
And I know it would have been a long field goal, but at least you still got a chance.
It was 4th and 1, I do believe, and they never got a playoff.
Oh, that's true. It was 4th down.
It's 4th and 1. Like I would have run up to the ball, snuck it, got the first down, you know, run a play or call timeout there. Like so many different things you could have done that they didn't do. Okay. That was an embarrassment. And there's a lot of reasons to fire Matt Eberflus at this point. A lot of them. This one right here is enough for me. Like
the cumulative effect really since everything that happened at the end of the Washington game. And somebody said 5 weeks ago, it's like, man, it's been 5 weeks already. You know, like talk about like, but starting with that and leading up to this, apparently and apparently there was, pretty close to a bloodletting in the locker room afterwards, like people just going off about, what the hell are you doing? And, whatever else. And like, once that happens, especially in the NFL, like you can't come back from that.
Done.
Yeah.
It's over. And I think he'd already started to lose the locker room anyway.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like starting with that Washington game.
Oh, yeah.
Everything leading up to that. And then you do that. There's just no way. The guy is just, he proved time and time again that he is not a game manager. And
correct.
That's, as a head coach, that sits pretty high on the list. Like you're going to be judged by that. And I said all along, I just, from watching that Hard Knocks, I was not impressed with what I saw of the guy. He between that and what we've seen him as a head coach his first couple seasons, there was just like he seemed like an okay head coach, but there was nothing inspiring about the guy. And when you're drafting a quarterback number 1 overall, and you're essentially letting the quarterback make the call on, are you going to take a quarterback or an offensive lineman, and you sign off on the quarterback. Now the general manager had to as well, but just bad decision after bad decision. Yeah. He absolutely deserved to go long time ago. DK just rubbing salt in the wound. Eberflus to Dallas.
Well, and the people
that are actually an assistant in Dallas a few years back before he went to the Colts.
The people that were, Ryan Day should go to the Bears. Like at that point, I'm hanging up by fandom. Like if that happened, I'm out.
It's just too much. To have Ryan Day as the head coach and Caleb Williams as the quarterback.
I'm out. I will officially be a Lions fan at that point. So
Heart can't take it anymore.
Nope. Cannot take it. I'm done.
So we did have a couple questions from Michael and Joseph, and I think Salty had something earlier about women's basketball in the Cayman Islands. And
yeesh.
Man, like the TCU game, there was some legit, Haley Van Lith and Sedona Prince, like some legit players in that game. And Prince is 6'7", and Kate Koval went into the game with 24 block shots, number 1 in the country, and Prince came in with 23, number 2 in the country. And then Prince had 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 8 blocks in that game. And it just felt like a real learning night for Kate Koval. But she still looked like she would. Now, she took I think it was in the first half. I don't know if you were watching it all, but Prince kind of like the back of her head hit Koval on the lip, and she was, she was bleeding coming out of that. And they kind of had to, like patch it up inside, I guess, like where her lip hit her tooth and all. But like she just kind of looked like there was some carryover effect. There was some carryover effect, I think, for the whole team against Utah. So I guess my point is, like with TCU, you could kind of not that you saw it coming, but at least like this is a really quality opponent. They've got a quality coach. They've got some, legit players. I was really shocked by the Utah game. It was just like Notre Dame was just never quite, locked in from like when they were able to run, things were great. But once they were half court, there was just a lack of general ball movement and, like running plays and the offense and that kind of stuff. I guess if I'm going to use my analogy, there's a lot of basketball to be played, but to me, like this weekend could sort of be their Northern Illinois.
There you go.
Weekend, so
coming off a big win against USC, is that the A&M game?
Because that's the thing. It's like you look so great a week before, and then you go down there, and it's just like, man, what happened? I don't know.
They look unbeatable against USC.
I know, but I will tell you this: like they're going to play Texas, and Texas this Thursday at home in that Big East SEC Challenge, and this is another top 5 team. But Notre Dame's going to have a good scouting report. They're going to have a good game plan put together, and I think that it'll be every bit the exciting game that we thought it was going to be a week ago. And maybe that again, like maybe they got caught looking from USC forward a little bit too much. I don't know, but Texas and UConn in the next couple of weeks, it's not going to get any easier. So
I'm ashamed.
Jesse doesn't even spell my name right. He says, what happens if Mike is back in Dallas next year? Now he's just egging me because I think I've already told him. I don't know if I said it on a show. If McCarthy is in Dallas next year, I'm boycotting.
Are you out?
I am out.
You and I will be looking for teams next year.
Yeah. Maybe you and I can just go eat wings together on Sundays or something.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. We'll just draw a team out of a hat. And
just
team.
cheer for somebody. Doesn't even matter at that point.
I can just only hope that he's not. Okay, so this was on the list today. Decaf wants to know if you saw Gladiator 2. You saw Gladiator 2. I saw Gladiator 2 about a week and a half ago now. Was it better or worse than you were expecting?
It was better than I expected.
Me too.
I will say that because there were some twists and turns that I was not anticipating. Because in the preview, it just looked like a retread of the first one. It did. It looked like a retread, and I was like, really? But
they kind of tried a little bit to go the Top Gun Maverick route with sort of how they mapped it out. Yeah.
It was so I was like, look, I really want to see this movie because I really like the first one, so I'm going to give it a shot. That's kind of how I was. I saw that.
TK said Vince will draw the Cowboys and I'll draw the Bears. That would be our luck.
It would be too. But no, I was pleasantly surprised with some of the twists and turns and some of the things that went down, and a little disappointed in some of the twists and turns that went down as well, just from a storytelling standpoint. But it was a good movie. It was not as good as the first, but it was a good movie. It was more than I expected. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And it was kind of funny because the guy who played the Hound for you Game of Thrones fans out there, he made an appearance. He was like the big burly, like, I don't think he showed up until the last two scenes when he was in the arena and he was like in charge of like the army inside, like the arena and all that stuff. And he was like the big guy on the horse at the end. Again, I'm trying not to give any stuff away when they were kind of riding at each other and all that. He was the leader of the ones coming out of the city.
Okay.
He was a Game of Thrones guy, but I don't know. It was interesting because they did definitely Joseph Quinn, who's in Stranger Things. I think he was it Eddie Munson, the guy who played the do you watch Stranger Things?
Mm-mm.
Not a Stranger Things guy? Okay. Well, you're not going to get that. Like big, like everyone's famous. He played the Metallica guitar thing.
Okay.
In Stranger Things. He was one of the taller twin emperor is who he was.
Oh, gotcha.
Remember they had twins, but it really felt like they were like some of the things, just like the way they talked, it was very Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes.
Well, I mean, some of the stuff, but yeah. But I mean, it was very Joaquin Phoenix like with kind of some of the notes they were trying to hit from the first one.
I want to know where they came from. That's the biggest thing for me. They never really explained where they came from.
And I will say it was odd. And this is not shade at Connie Nielsen. We all look different than 25 years ago when the original was made. But like at the front of the movie, they said it had been 16 years.
Yeah.
Since the stuff that happened,
which is
in
odd
the original. It's like, I'm
sorry.
Connie Nielsen, basically the only one, if I'm not mistaken, maybe like one of the senators, one or two of the senators.
The older senator that was on her side.
Everyone looked more than 16 years older then, because it's been 25 years.
Correct.
It's like, could we have just said 20 years later?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Because
I don't understand why.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me either. And if they're trying to match some sort of Roman timeline that actually existed, nobody cares. That wasn't necessary.
Exactly.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was better than it was going to be as well. At the same time, I thought there was still a lot of room for, could have been a better movie. A little like Rocky IV at the end, like after the Drago fight, like I can change, you can change, we all can change, like the little speech.
The speech that he gave at
that
the
kind
end.
of stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. And I also felt like they kind of screwed up with potential like another sequel opportunity, didn't you?
Yes.
Again, without any spoilers.
I don't want to give anything away, but I'll just say
just the way they ended. It was just, well, okay. So, because like the guy who played the lead, never heard of him before.
Lucius.
Yeah, the guy who played Lucius. But I'd say, like, look, if you got a couple hours to kill, like, I would say go see it.
It was entertaining. I was entertained, but I was entertained. Thank you.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah, I was entertained.
I was waiting for something like that.
I know. I was entertained. And there were definitely nods to the first movie in a couple of different ways and, some different things. And
right.
But it was better than I thought it was going to be. So I will give it that prop. So
for sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it.
We gave you guys a 2-hour show. I hope you're happy.
I know. We got Jesse, like he should be pushing Cleveland about right now since he was still chiming in a second ago.
I hope so. I hope he wasn't actually typing on his phone, which is why he misspelled your name. But
maybe him and Tommy drove past each other out there on the toll road someplace.
Seriously.
All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up with that. Again, appreciate you being here tonight. Oh, man, Scott coming in hot at the very end. Gladiator 1 stunk. Glorification of violence. Wasn't rooting for the protagonist. Never wanted to see it again after the first time. Definitely not watching. Oof, man.
Wow.
That is a hot take.
You are in a minority, my friend. I appreciate the chat and everything, but you are in a minority.
The fight scenes in the original, like I would say, they could have easily cut about 20 minutes off the original, and I would have been a lot tighter. They could have
that's fair
whittled some of the stuff, like cut out some of the space in between, because the gladiator scenes in the original were just
unbelievable.
Awesome. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they tried to recreate them in this one. I will say this, and because they do show it in a preview, so it's not really giving anything away. I thought when they filled the Coliseum with water and they did like the water scene, that was dumb.
I thought that was a little bit much.
That was dumb.
Yeah.
I don't
totally
like that.
Agree.
It didn't add anything. Like all it was there for was to educate people who didn't realize that they filled the Coliseum with water back in the day. Like that's all it did for,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't add anything to the movie in any way to me, but so I'll leave it at that.
I agree. Could have come up with some better fight scenes, I thought, than what they ended up doing. All right, well, smash that like button before you leave. Again, appreciate you being here tonight. We're off and running on a great week. Plenty more content, of course, coming for you, all week. And basically, we don't stop year round, obviously, but now's the fun time. We're in college football playoff mode, and as long as Notre Dame keeps surviving and advancing, we're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So we got a lot more coming.
Yeah, a lot more.
MFers. All right, hit the like button, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.